According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Miss Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country,
Mrs. Barlow! Mrs. Barlow? There, it's cold. Oh, it really does look nice. Oh, how stupid of Giles. Gosh.
Molly! Molly! Molly, where are you?
Doing all the work, you brute.
There you are. Leave it all to me. Shall I soak up the egg up?
Done.
Hello, sweetheart. Your nose is cold.
I've just come in.
Why? Where have you been? Surely you've not been out in this weather.
I had to go down to the village to get some stuff I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken netting?
It wasn't the right kind. I went on to another duck, but it wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted, my God. I'm half frozen. The car is skidding like anything. The snow is coming down thick. What do you bet we're not snowed up tomorrow?
Oh, dear, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
Not too good. I wish they sent the Coke along. We've not got any too much.
I do so want everything to go well at first. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? Nobody's arrived yet, I suppose.
No, thank goodness. I think everything's in order. Mrs. Barlow hooked it early, afraid of the weather, I suppose.
What a nuisance these daily women are. That leaves everything on your shoulders.
And yours. This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
No, that's my department. Anyway, we've got lots of reserve tins in case we are snowed up. Giles, do you think everything will be all right?
Are you sorry now that we didn't sell the place when your aunt first left it to you? Instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it. And talking of guest house, just look at that.
Pretty good. What?
Did you see? You've left out the S. Monkwell instead of Monkswell.
Good Lord, so I did. However did I come to that? But it doesn't really matter, does it? Monkwell is just as good as a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Across that icy yard? Oh, shall I bank it up for the night now?
No, you don't do that until 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
How appalling.
Hurry up. Someone may arrive at any minute.
You've got all the rooms worked out?
Yes. Mrs. Boyle, front four-poster room. Major Metcalf, blue room. Miss Casewell, east room, and Mr. Wren, oak room.
I wonder where all these people will be like. Oughtn't we have to got rent in advance?
No, I don't think so.
We're rather mugs at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hang on to their luggage. It's quite simple.
I can't help thinking we ought to have taken a correspondence course in hotel keeping. We're sure to get had in some way. Their luggage might just be bricks wrapped up in newspaper, and where would we be then?
Well, they all wrote from very good addresses.
That's what servants with forged references do. Some of these people might be criminals hiding from the police.
Well, I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas every week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Molly.
and according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Miss Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be certain freezing, particularly in the north.
How do you do?
Thanks so much. Weather is simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. Wouldn't attempt to drive. No sporting instinct. Are you Mrs. Ralston? How delightful. My name's Wren.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
No, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired general's widow. Indian Army. I thought you'd be terrifically grim and memsahibish, that the whole place would be simply crammed with bananas of brass. Instead, it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions. That's a fake. Ah, but this table's genuine. I'm simply going to love this place. Have you got any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
I'm afraid not.
What a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A purple plummy mahogany sideboard with solid carved fruits on it?
Yes, we have in the dining room.
In here? I must see it.
Do come and warm yourself.
Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability. But why do away with a center mahogany table? Little tables just spoil the effect.
Well, we thought guests would prefer them. This is my husband.
How do you do? Terrible weather, isn't it? Takes one back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritating Tiny Tim. So bogus. Of course, Mrs. Ralston, you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was being carried away by my feeling for a period. If you had a mahogany dining table, you'd have that right family around it. Stern, handsome father with a beard, prolific faded mother, 11 children of assorted ages, a grim governess, and somebody called Poor Harriet, a poor relation who acts as a general dog's body, who's very, very grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your suitcase upstairs for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope it's got a four-poster with little chintz roses.
It hasn't.
I don't believe your husband is going to like me. How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to come up and see a room?
Ticked off. Oh, but I do so like knowing all about people. I mean, I think people are so madly interesting, don't you?
Well, I suppose some are, and some are not.
No, I don't agree. I think they're all interesting because you never really know what anyone is like or what they're really thinking. For example, you do not know what I'm thinking about now, do you?
Not in the least. Cigarette.
No, thank you. You see, the only people who really know what other people are like are artists, and they do not know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Are you a painter?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, baptized me. Christopher had hopes that I would be one. As good as halfway home. Actually, of course, everybody laughs about it and makes fun of St. Paul's. However, who knows? I may have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefabness may yet go down in history. I'm simply going to love this place. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
Really very beautiful.
Don't be absurd.
There. Isn't that like an English woman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course, but English women have all of their feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. Something very boorish about English husbands.
Come up and see a room.
Shall I?
Did you stove up the hot water boiler?
This is Knoxville Manor, I presume?
Yes.
I'm Mrs. Boyle.
I'm Giles Ralston. Please come into the fire, Mrs. Boyle, and get warm. Is this your only luggage?
Major Metcalf, is it? Is seeing to it?
I'll leave the door for you.
The taxi, when was coming up the drive? I just share a taxi from the station and there was great difficulty in getting that. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seems.
I'm so sorry. We didn't know what train you'd be coming by, you see. Or otherwise, of course, we would have seen that someone was standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Let me take your coat. My wife will be down in a minute. I'll just go and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
The drive might be slipping clear of snow. Most offhand and casual, I must say.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ralston,
Yes, I was...
you're quite young.
young.
To be running an establishment of this kind, you can't have had much experience.
Well, there has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. An old house. I hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
A lot of people don't know they've got dry rot till it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect Condition.
It could do with a coat of paint. You know, you've got worm in this oak.
This way, Major. Here's Molly, my wife.
How do you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Thought at one time we shouldn't make it. Oh, I beg your pardon. If it goes on like this, I should say I'll have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. That's been anything like it since I was on leave in 1940.
I'll take these upstairs for you. Which rooms did you say? Blue room and rose room.
No, I put Mr. Wren in the rose room. He likes the 4 posters so much, so it's Major Metcalf in the blue room and Mrs. Boyle in the oak room.
Major!
Sir!
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
We have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what, indoor staff?
No indoor staff, it's just us.
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential for opening this kind of establishment. May I ask if I'm going to guess with Major Metcalf, that is?
No, there are several here.
This weather too, a blizzard, no less, all very unfortunate.
Well, we couldn't very well foresee the weather, Mrs. Boyle.
The north wind doth blow, and it will bring snow. And what will the robin do then, poor thing? I adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so tragic and macabre. That's why children like them.
May I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle?
How do you do?
This is a very beautiful house, don't you think so?
I have come to the time of my life when the amenities of an establishment are more important than its appearance. If I had not believed this was a running concern, I should have never come here. I understood it was fully equipped with every home comfort.
There's no need for you to remain here if you are not satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
No, indeed, I should not think of doing so.
If there's been any misapprehension, perhaps it'd be better if you went elsewhere. I could ring up for the taxi. The roads are not yet blocked. We have had so many applications, you see, that we shall be able to fill your room quite easily. In any case, we are raising our terms next month.
I am not going to leave before I've tried what this place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you'll take me up to my bedroom, Mrs. Ralston.
Oh, certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you were wonderful.
I think that's a perfectly horrible woman. I do not like her at all. I'd love to see you turn her out into the snow. Serve her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forego, I'm afraid. Lord, there's another of them. Come in, come in.
Afraid my car's bogged about half a mile down the road, ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
Nope, I travel light. Huh. Glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren, Ms.
Stays well.
My wife will be down in a minute.
No hurry. Gotta get myself thawed out. Looks as though you're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast says heavy falls expected, motorist warned, etc. Hope you've plenty of provisions in.
Oh yes, my wife's an excellent manager. In any case, we could always eat our heads.
Before we start hitting each other, eh?
Any news in the paper, apart from the weather?
Usual political crisis, oh yes. And a rather juicy murder.
Murder? Oh, I like murder.
They seem to think it was a homicidal maniac strangled a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity of Culver Street. Medium height, wearing darkish overcoat, lightish scarf, and soft felt hat. Police messages to this effect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Fit pretty well. Anyone, wouldn't it?
When it says that the police are anxious to interview someone, is that a way of hinting that he's the murderer?
Could be.
Who is the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon. Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
Doesn't say. Doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you. Sex maniac.
Here, Miss Casewell, Molly, my wife.
How do you do?
Oh, it's an awful night. Would you like to come up to see your room? The water's hot if you'd like a bath.
You're right, I would.
Major Metcalf seems very nice. He won't be trouble. It's Mrs. Boyle who really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced beef and cereals, and a tin of peas, and mashing the potatoes, and then there's stewed figs and custard. Do you think that'll be all right?
Should be. Not very original, perhaps.
Oh, do let me help. I adore cooking. Why not an omelet? You've got eggs, haven't you?
Oh, yes, we've got plenty of eggs. We keep lots of fowl, though they don't lay as well as they should. We've put down lots of eggs.
And if you've got a bottle of cheap, any type of wine, you could add it to the minced beef and cereals, you could say. Give it a continental flavor. Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got, and I dare say it'll have an inspiration.
Come on. Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and is getting all the things together. He said don't come back in half an hour and leave it all to him. If our guests want to do the cooking themselves, it will save us lots of trouble.
Why on earth did you give him the best room?
Well, I told you, he liked the 4-poster.
You like the pretty 4-poster. Twerp.
Giles!
I've no use for that kind. In any case, you didn't handle his suitcase. I did.
Had it got bricks in it.
There was no weight at all. If you ask me, he's probably one of those young men who go around bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. Miss Casewell seems rather peculiar, don't you think?
Terrible female. If she is a female.
Seems very hard that all our guests should either be odd or unpleasant. Anyway, Major Metcalf seems all right, don't you think?
Probably drinks.
Do you think so?
No, I was just feeling rather depressed. At any rate, we know the worst of it now. They've all arrived.
Who could that be?
Probably the Culver Street murderer.
Giles, don't.
Oh.
1,000 pardons, I am. Where am I?
This is Monkswell Manor Guest House.
Oh, what stupendous good fortune, madam. An answer to prayer, a guest house, and a charming hostess. My Rolls Royce, alas, is run into a snowdrift. Blinding snow everywhere. I do not know where I am. Perhaps, I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. And then I take a little bag, I stagger through the snow, and I see before me big iron gates. A habitation! I am saved. Twice I fall in the snow as I come up your drive, but at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns to joy. You can let me have a room, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's a rather small one, I'm afraid.
Naturally. You have other guests.
We've only just opened this place as a guest house today, so we're rather new at it.
Charming.
What about your luggage?
That is of no consequence. I blocked the car securely.
Wouldn't it be better to get it in?
No, I can assure you on such a night as this, there will be no thieves abroad. And as for me, my wants are very simple. I have all that I need. Here, in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
Well, you'd better get thoroughly warm. I'll see about your room. It's a rather cold one, I'm afraid, because it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
You have several other guests then?
Yes, there's Mrs. Boyle, Major Metcalf, Miss Casewell, and a young man called Christopher Wren. And now, you.
Yes. The unexpected guest. The guest that you did not invite. The guest who just arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. Sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me? I am the man of mystery. But now, I'll tell you this. From now on, there will be no more arrivals, and no departures either. By tomorrow, or perhaps even already, we are cut off from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers. Nobody and nothing but ourselves. That is admirable. Admirable. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Pervicini.
Oh, yes, ours is Ralston.
Mr. and Mrs. Ralston. And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House, you said? Good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Perfect. Perfect.
been most dishonest not to have told me they were only just starting this place.
Everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast. Scrambled eggs, good coffee, homemade marmalade, and all nicely served too. Little woman does it all herself, you know.
Amateurs, there should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch too.
Corned beef,
But very well disguised corned beef. Red wine in it. Mrs. Ralston promised to make a pie for us tonight.
these radiators are not really hot. I shall speak about it.
Very comfortable beds too. At least mine was. I hope yours was too.
It was quite adequate, but I don't quite see why the best bedroom should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first served.
From the advertisement, I got quite a different impression of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room and a much larger place altogether, with bridge and other amenities.
Ha! Regular old times delight, eh?
I beg your pardon?
I mean, yes, I quite see what you mean.
No, indeed, I shan't stay here long.
No. No. I don't suppose you will.
Really, this is a very peculiar young man. On balance, mentally, I should wonder.
Think he's escaped from a lunatic asylum.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Giles,
Yes?
can you shovel the snow away again from the back door?
Coming.
I'll give you a hand. What? Good exercise. Lots of exercise.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Really, what an incredible young woman. Doesn't she know anything about housework? Carried a carpet sweeper through the front hall. Are there any back stairs?
Oh yes, nice back stairs. Very convenient if there was a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should be done in the morning, before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch?
All very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed, the lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor old lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you're a socialist?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm not red. Just pale pink, but I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook or clean as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill. Not what it used to be. I sold my house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solved some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
I've got some business to see to. When it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No.
Italy?
No.
Would you mind not having this on quite so loud? I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to
This
listen,
is my favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer in here.
Much warmer. I agree.
Oh, wherever I go, that woman seems to hunt me down. And she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Oh yes. It served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics, boy.
Oh, you mean her?
her.
He pitched the best chair. I've got it now.
You drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her a bit. Let's think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? I wish she'd go away from here.
Business? Not a hope.
But when the snow melts...
Oh. When the snow melts, lots of things may have happened.
Yes, that's true. Snow's rather lovely, isn't it? So peaceful and pure. Makes one forget things.
Doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilblains raw and bleeding. One thin, ragged blanket. Child shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds too grim. What is it, a novel?
You didn't know I was a writer, did you?
Are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not.
Yes, this is Muscle Manor Guest House. What? No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the phone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Who? The Berkshire Police. Oh, yes, Superintendent Hogben. No, I'm afraid that's impossible. He never get here. We're snowed up, completely snowed up. The roads are impassable. Nothing can get through. Yes, very well, but what? Hello? Hello?
Molly, do you know where there's another spade?
Giles, the police have just rung up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license?
They said they're sending a sergeant or an inspector or something.
But he'll never get here.
That's what I said, but they seemed quite confident that he would.
Nonsense. Not even a jeep could get through today. Anyways, what's it all about?
That's what I asked, but he wouldn't say, just that I was to impress on my husband to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Schroeder, I think it was, had to say and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't it extraordinary?
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it was those nylons from Gibraltar?
I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I had a rather near shave with the car the other day, but it was entirely the other fellow's fault.
Well, we must have done something.
I expect it's something to do with running the place. It's probably some tin pot ministry or other. We practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Oh, I wish we never started this place. We're going to be snowed up for days and everyone is cross, and we shall go through all of our reserve tins.
Molly, everything is going to be all right. I've filled all the coal scuttles, brought in the wood, stoked the egg, and done the hens. I'll go and do the boiler next and chop some kindling. You know, Molly, it must be something really important to send a police sergeant trekking out in all this. It must be something really urgent.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Ralston. Do you know that the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
I'm so sorry, we're a bit short of
I am
coke and-
paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to freeze.
I'll go and stoke it up.
Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, that is a very extraordinary young man you stay in here. His manners and his ties, and doesn't even brush his hair.
He's an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon?
Christopher Wren, he's an architect.
My dear young woman, I have naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course, he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people seem to think that no one is educated but yourselves.
No, I mean this Wren, his name is Christopher. His parents called him that because they hoped he'd be an architect, and he is, or nearly one, so it worked out all right.
Sounds a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries about him if I were you. What do you know of him?
Just as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you're both paying us 7 guineas every week. That's all that I really need to know, isn't it? And all that concerns me, it doesn't matter to me whether I like my guests or whether I don't.
You are young and inexperienced and should welcome advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourselves. And what about this foreigner?
What about him?
You weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveler, Mrs. Boyle, is against the law. You should know that.
Why do you say that?
Weren't you a magistrate, sitting on the bench, Mrs. Boyle?
All I say is that this Parravicini, or whatever he calls himself—
Beware, dear lady. You talk of the devil in your ears.
I didn't hear you come in.
I came in on tiptoe, like this. Nobody ever hears me if I do not want them to. I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
There was a young
Well,
lady.
I must get on with my letters. I'll see it's a little warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Everything's just rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Yes, snow makes things difficult, does it not? Or else it makes them easy. Yes, very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
No, there is quite a lot you do not know. I think, for one thing, you do not know very much about running a guest house.
I dare say we don't, but we mean to make a go of it.
Bravo, bravo.
I'm not really such a very bad cook.
You are without a doubt an enchanted cook. May I give you a little word of warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting, you know. Have your references with these guests of yours.
Is that usual? I always thought people just came.
Is it advisable to know a little about the people who sleep under your roof? Take, for example, myself. I turn up saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. What do you know of me? Nothing at all. I may be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer. You see? And perhaps you know just as little of your other guests.
Well, as far as Mrs. Boyle goes,
The drawing room is far too cold to sit in. I shall write my letters in here.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, but is your husband about? I'm afraid the pipes of the Dassler's cloak were frozen.
what an awful day. First the police and now the pipes.
Police.
Police, did you say?
Yes, they run up just now to say they're sending a sergeant along, but I don't think he'll ever get here.
The running coke's more than half stones. Hello, is anything the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
That's all right. Why, no one can get through in this, but the drifts must be 5 feet deep. The roads are all banked up. No one will get here today. Excuse me, Miss Parravicini, may I put these down?
Oh!
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Could I get these skis off and stow them somewhere?
Go around to the front door. I'll meet you.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose that's what we pay our police force for nowadays, to go around enjoying themselves at winter sports.
Why did you send for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who's that man? Where did he come from? Past the drawing room window on skis, all over snow and looking terribly hearty.
You may believe it or not, but that is a policeman. A policeman skiing.
This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant. You're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madam.
What terribly hearty.
We'll show you skis under the stairs.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston, but may I use your telephone?
Of course, Major Metcalf.
He's very attractive, don't you think so? I always think that the policemen are very attractive.
No brains? You can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Ralston, I'm afraid your telephone is dead. Quite dead.
It was all right about half an hour ago.
Line's gone with the weight of the snow, I suppose.
So we're quite cut off now. Quite cut off? That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
It's a private joke of my own.
The sleuth is returning. Now we can get to business, Mr. Ralston. Mrs. Ralston?
If you'd like to see us alone, we can go into the library.
It's not necessary, sir. We'll save more time if everybody's present. If I might sit at this table.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you.
Oh, do hurry up and tell us, Sergeant. What have we done?
Done? Oh, no, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection.
It relates to the death of Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London, West 2, who was murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled.
That's right, madam. Now, the first thing I want to know is if you were acquainted with this Mrs. Lyon.
Never heard of her.
You may have known of her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without much difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Standing. Her husband was a farmer, John Standing, who resided at Longridge Farm, not very far from here.
Longridge Farm? Isn't that where those children were?
Yes, the Longridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans, 2 boys and a girl, brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Standing of Longridge Farm. But one of the children subsequently died as the result of criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. The case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Standing died in prison. Mrs. Standing served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was found at the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street. The other was Monkswell Manor.
What?
Yes, sir. That's why Superintendent Hodgman, upon receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative of me to come out here and find out if you knew of any connection between this house or anyone in this house and the Longridge Farm case.
No, there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It must be a coincidence.
Superintendent Hodgman doesn't think it's a coincidence, sir. He'd have came himself if it had been in any way possible. But under these weather conditions, and as I can ski, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in the house, to report back to him by telephone, and take whatever measures I thought fit to ensure the safety of this household.
Safety. What danger does he think we're in? He doesn't think that someone's going to be killed
I
here.
don't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
Well, that's what I've got to find out.
But the whole thing is crazy.
Yes, sir, it's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Nonsense.
I must say it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something you haven't told us yet, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Ralston. Beneath the 2 addresses was written 3 blind mice, and on the dead woman's body was a paper with "This is the first" written on it. And beneath that, a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. The music was the tune of the nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice, see how they run. They all ran after the farmer's wife. Oh, it's horrible.
There were 3 children and 1 died.
Yes, the youngest, a boy of 11.
What happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by somebody. We haven't been able to trace her present whereabouts. But the elder boy would now be about 22, deserted from the army and has not been heard of since. According to the army psychologist, he was definitely schizophrenic, a bit queer in the head, that's to say.
And they think that it was he who killed Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Stanning.
Yes.
And that he's a homicidal maniac. And that he'll turn up here and try and kill someone, but why?
Well, that's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you state, sir, that you yourself have never had any connection with the Longridge Farm case.
No.
And the same goes for you, madam.
No connection.
What about servants?
Well, we haven't got any servants. Well, that reminds me, Sergeant Trotter. Would you mind if I went to the kitchen? I'll be there if you need me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Ralston. Now, can I have all your names, please?
This is quite ridiculous. We're merely staying in a kind of hotel. We've only arrived yesterday. There's nothing to do with this place.
You planned to come here in advance, though. You booked your rooms here ahead.
Well, yes. All except Mr.
Caravaccini. My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. Well, what I'm getting at is that anybody who's been following you around might know very well that you were coming here. Now, there's just one thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with that business at Longridge Farm? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger. Deadly danger. I've got to know which one that is. All right. I'll ask you one by one. You first, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr. Perry.
Caravaccini. But, my dear Inspector, I know nothing but nothing of what you've been talking about. I'm a stranger to this country. I know nothing of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle. Really? I don't see. I consider it an impertinence. What on earth should I have anything to do with this distressing business?
Miss.
Casewell. Leslie Casewell. I've never heard of Longridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
You, sir.
Metcalf, Major. I read about the case in the paper at the time. I was stationed at Edinburgh then. No personal knowledge.
And you, Christopher Wren. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
And that's all you have to say? Any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll only have yourselves to blame. Now, Mr. Ralston, can I have a look around the house?
My dears, how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I do admire the police, so stern and hard-boiled. Quite a thrill this whole business is. 3 blind mice. How does the tune go?
Really, Mr. Wren?
Don't you like it? But it's the signature tune. The signature of the murderer. Just fancy what a kick he must be getting out of it.
Melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Mrs. Boyle, till I creep up behind you, and you feel my hands on your
Stop!
Stop, Christopher. It's a poor joke. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
Oh, but it is. That's just what it is. A madman's joke. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If you could just see your faces.
A singularly ill-mannered and neurotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking our policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in the most abnormal manner.
Young fellows seem nervy nowadays. Dare say I'll grow out of it.
Nerves? I've no patience with people who say they have nerves. I haven't gotten any nerves.
No? Perhaps that's just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
What do you mean?
I believe you're one of the magistrates on the bench at the time. Yes, in fact, you were responsible for sending those 3 children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf? I can hardly be held responsible. We have reports from welfare workers, and the farm people seemed most anxious to have the children. Eggs and fresh milk, and how they had a door's life.
Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
But how was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
Yes, I was right. It was you.
One tries to a public duty, and all one gets is abuse.
Oh, you must forgive me, but indeed I find all this most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly.
I never did like that man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks a bit of a spiff to me. Makes his face look too rouge and powder. Disgusting! He must be quite old too.
And yet he skips about like a much younger man.
You'll be wanting more wood? I'll get it.
It's almost dark and yet it's only 4 in the afternoon. I'll turn the light on. That's better.
No. Where did I leave my pen?
that is.
Don't you like it? Reminds you of your childhood, perhaps? An unhappy childhood?
I was very happy as a child.
You're lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No.
I'm sorry.
But all that's a long time ago. One gets over things,
I suppose so.
or doesn't one? Damned hard to say.
They say what happened when you're a child matters more than anything else.
They say. Who says?
Psychologists.
It's all humbug, just a damn lot of nonsense. I have no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
Well, I've never really had much to do with them.
A good thing for you haven't. It's all a lot of hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it. Go straight ahead. Don't look back.
But one can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
Well, I expect you're right, but sometimes things happen to make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on them.
But is that really the right way? I wonder, perhaps that's all wrong. Perhaps one ought to really face them.
Depends what you're talking about.
Sometimes I hardly even know what I'm talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except in the way I want it to.
Well, everything's all right upstairs. What's in here? Drawing room.
Would you mind just shutting that door? This place is full of drafts.
Sorry, madam, I've got to get the lay of the land.
Molly, what's all this?
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my report now to Superintendent Hogben.
You can't telephone. The line's dead.
What? Since when?
Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Hogben got through all right.
Yes, I suppose since then the lines are down with the snow.
I wonder. It may have been cut.
Cut. But who would cut it?
Mr. Ralston, just how much do you know about these people staying in your guest house?
We don't really know much about them.
Ah,
Mrs. Boyle wrote from a hotel in Bournemouth. Major Metcalf from an address in, where was it?
Leamington.
Wrote from Hampstead, and Miss Casewell from a private hotel in Kensington. And Mr. Paravicini, as we told you, turned out of the blue last night. But they've all got ration books, that sort of
I
thing.
shall go into all of that, of course, but there isn't much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
But even if this maniac is trying to get here and kill us all, or one of us, we're quite safe now because of the snow. No one can get here until it melts.
Unless he's here already.
Here already.
Why not, Mr. Ralston? All these people arrived here yesterday evening, some hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. There's plenty of time to get here.
All except for Mr. Paravicini, they'd all booked beforehand.
Well, why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes. There's only been one crime in Culver Street. Why are you so sure there'll be another
That
here?
it will happen here, no, I hope to prevent that. But that it will be attempted, yes.
I can't believe it. It's so fantastic.
It isn't fantastic, it's just facts.
Do you have a description of what this man looked like in London?
Medium height, indeterminate build, wore a darkish overcoat, face hidden by a muffler, wore a soft felt hat, and spoke in a whisper. There are 3 darkish overcoats hanging in the hall right now, Mr. Ralston. One of them is yours. There are 3 lightish felt hats.
I still can't believe it.
You see, it's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut,
I must go and get on with the vegetables.
is there an extension?
I beg your pardon, did you say something?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I asked, is there an extension?
Yes, up in our bedroom.
Go and try it up there for me, will you?
left this window open.
To understand what I may term as the mechanics of fear, you have to study the precise effect produced on the human mind. Imagine, for instance, that you are alone in a room. It is late in the afternoon. A door opens softly behind you.
Oh, it's you. I can't find any program worth listening to. Here. What are you doing? Why turn the lights out?
Now, Mrs. Ralston, try and think. Think.
I can't think. My head's numb.
Mrs. Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. You came from the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody as you came along the hall?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out here. I couldn't think who turned it on so loud. I wouldn't hear anything else with that, would I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea. Or murderess.
How could I hear anything else?
You might have done. If the murderer had left the hall that way, he might have heard you coming from the kitchen. He might have slipped into the dining room or up the back stairs.
I'm not sure. I heard a door creak and shut just as I came out of the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, right, left?
I don't know, I tell you. I'm not even sure I heard anything at all.
Can't you stop bullying her? Can't you see she's all in?
We are investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, nobody has taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. She held out on me with information. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. Unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there's going to be another death.
Another. Nonsense. Why?
Because there were 3 blind mice in that notebook we found.
That would mean there have to be some connection or another connection with the Longridge Farm case.
Yes, there would have to be that.
But why another death here?
Because there were only 2 addresses. At 24 Culver Street, there's only 1 possible victim. But here, at Monkswell Manor, there's a wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both of them with a share in this Longridge Farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it shouldn't be so much of a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now, I want to get down quite clearly where we all were when Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen, preparing vegetables. You came out of the kitchen, through the passage, through the swing doors, into the hall, and in here. The radio was blaring, the light was switched off, and the hall was dark. You switched on the light, saw Mrs. Boyle, and screamed.
Yes, I screamed, and at last, people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. Many people from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now, when I got out this window to trace the telephone wire around to near the front door, you, Mr. Ralston, went up to the room you and Mrs. Ralston occupied to try the extension telephone there. Where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in my bedroom. The extension telephone was dead too. I looked outside of the window to see if I could see any sign of the wires being cut, but I couldn't. Just after I closed the window, I heard Molly scream and I rushed down.
Those simple actions took you rather a long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I should say you definitely took your time over them.
I was thinking about something.
Very well. Now, Mr. Wren, I'll have your account of where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. After that, I went upstairs to my bedroom.
Why?
It's quite a natural thing to go to one's bedroom, don't you think? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes,
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone.
and I wanted to tidy up, and brush my hair.
You wanted to brush your hair.
Anyway, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you came down.
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I went down by the back stairs. They're near to my room.
Did you go up by the back stairs too, or did you come through here?
I went up by the back stairs too.
I see. Mr. Paravicini?
I have told you. I was playing piano in the drawing room through there, Inspector.
I'm not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Paravicini. Did anybody hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very softly with one finger, so...
You were playing Three Blind Mice.
Is that so?
Yes, it's a very catchy little tune. It is, how shall I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
And yet it runs in people's head. Someone was whistling it too.
Whistling it? Where?
I'm not sure. Perhaps in the front hall, perhaps on the stairs, perhaps even upstairs in a bedroom.
Who was whistling Three Blind Mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paravicini?
No, Inspector. I beg your pardon. Sergeant, I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
One finger, so. And then I hear the radio playing very loud. Someone is shouting on it. It offended my ears. And then, all of a sudden, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston, upstairs. Mr. Wren, upstairs. Mr. Paravicini, in the drawing room. Miss Casewell,
I was writing letters in the library.
could you hear what was going on down here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here?
At once.
I think so.
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you got up from the writing table hurriedly and came in here.
Yes.
And yet, there doesn't seem to be an unfinished letter on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, a friend of yours or a relation?
None of your damn business.
Perhaps not. You know, if I were to hear someone screaming blue murder, I don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my handbag before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't? How interesting.
Now, Major Metcalf, I'll have your account of where you were.
I was looking around, just looking around. I looked into that cellar place, under the stairs near the kitchen, whole lot of junk and sports tackle, and I noticed there was a door inside it. I opened it and I saw a flight of steps. I was curious and I went on down. Nice cellar you've got.
Glad you like them.
Not at all. Crypt of an old monastery, I should say. Probably why it's called Mom's
We
Well.
aren't engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We're investigating a murder. Mrs. Ralston has been kind enough to tell us that she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. It could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door to after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Mine are though, alright? But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual that all criminals slip up sooner or later.
I wonder, Sergeant, if that's really true.
But look here, there is just
Please,
one...
Mr. Ralston, I'm in charge of this investigation.
Very well, but ask me.
Mr. Ralston! Thank you. We have to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And let me tell you this. You all had opportunity. There are 2 staircases. Anybody could go up by one and come down by the other. Anybody could go into the cupboard near the kitchen and go down a flight of steps that lead into the cellar and come up by a flight that leads through a trap door to the foot of the stairs over there. The vital fact is that each and every one of you was alone at the time the murder was committed.
You speak as though we're all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
You know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it's the eldest of those 3 children, an abnormal young man who's now 23 years of age. Well, damn it all. There is just one person here who fits the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. Everyone's always been against me, and you're going to frame me for murder? It's persecution. That's just what it is. Persecution.
Study, lads, study.
It's all right, Chris. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Well, tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anybody. To do that, I've got to have evidence. I haven't got any evidence yet.
I think you're crazy, Molly. And you too. There's just one person here who fits the bill, and if only as a safety measure, he better be put under arrest.
Wait, Giles. Wait, Sergeant Trotter, could I speak to you a minute?
Certainly, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you please go into the dining room?
I'm staying.
No, Giles, you too.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Molly.
Please.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you wanted to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer must be the eldest of those 3 boys at the farm, but you don't know that, do you?
Well, we don't actually know a thing. All we've got so far is that the woman who joined with her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed. And the woman magistrate responsible for placing them there has been killed. The telephone wire linking me with police headquarters has also been cut.
But you don't even know that. It may have just been the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, the line was deliberately cut. It was cut just outside by the front door. I found the place.
Oh, I see.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
But all the same, you don't
I'm
know
going
that.
by probability. It all points one way. Childish mentality, mental instability, desertion from the army, and a psychiatrist's report.
I know, and therefore it all seems to point to Christopher, but I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, hadn't those children any relations at all?
The mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken away from her.
What about their father?
He was an army sergeant serving abroad. If he's still alive, he's probably discharged from the army by now.
You don't know where he is now.
We have no information. To trace him may take some time, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, the police will take every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he may be at this minute. If the son is mentally unstable, the father may have been unstable
Well,
too.
it's a possibility.
If he came home after being a prisoner with the Japanese, having suffered terribly, if he came home and found his wife dead, and his children had gone through some terrible experience, and one of them had died through it, he might go off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
So the murderer might be middle-aged or even old. Major Metcalf did look frightfully upset when I said the police had rung up. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf.
Middle-aged, soldier. I know he seems quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So it's not only Christopher who's a suspect, it's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Well, Mr. Pervicini did drop the fire poker when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Paravicini.
I know he seems quite old and foreign and all, but he really mightn't be as old as he looks. He moves like a much younger man, and he definitely wears makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too. He might be, I know it sounds very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it should be young Mr. Wren?
He seems so helpless somehow. So unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, let me tell you something. I've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy, Georgie, the father, and someone else. There was a sister, you remember?
Oh, the sister.
It could have been a woman who killed Maureen Lyon. A woman. The muffler well pulled up and the man's felt hat pulled down. And the killer whispered, you know. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, it might have been a woman.
Miss Casewell?
She looks a little old for the part. But yes, Mrs. Ralston, there's a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me.
You're about the right age. No. Whatever you tell me about yourself, I've got no means of checking it at this moment, remember. And then there's your husband.
Giles, oh, how ridiculous.
He and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say, your husband looks older than his years, and Christopher Wren much younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. Just how much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Oh, don't be silly.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
And you met where?
In London, we went to dance. We went in a party.
Did you meet his people?
Well, he hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead?
Yes, but you make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister, and his mother died when he was just a baby.
Well, you're only telling me what he told you.
Yes,
You don't know it of your own knowledge.
It's outrageous.
You'd be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, how many cases, rather like yours, we get, especially since the war. Homes broken up and families dead. Fellow says he's been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed. No relations. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, and young people settle their own affairs. They meet and marry. It's parents and relatives who used to make the inquiries before they consented to an engagement. But that's all done away with. Nowadays, girl just marries her man. Sometimes, she doesn't find out for a year or two that he's an absconding bank clerk, or an army deserter, or something equally undesirable. How long had you known Giles Ralston when you married him?
Just 3 weeks.
And you don't know anything about him?
No, that's not true. I know everything about him. I know exactly the sort of person he is. He's Giles, and it's absolutely absurd that you would suggest he's some horrible, crazy, homicidal maniac. Why, Giles was not even in London yesterday when the murder took place.
Where was he? Here.
No, he went across country to get some wire netting for our chickens.
Bring it back with them.
No, it turned out to be the wrong kind.
You're only 30 miles from London, aren't you? Oh, you've got an ABC. An hour by train, a little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. Is this your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening News. Yesterday's. Sold on the streets at about 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
Don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Wally,
You startled me.
where is he? Where has he gone?
Who?
The sergeant.
He just went out that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow. Some way. Is there anywhere I could hide in the house?
Hide?
Yes, from him.
Why?
Oh, but darling, they're also frightfully against me. They're going to say he committed these murders, particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Listen, Christopher, you can't go on running away from things all your life.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's quite true.
You've got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name isn't really Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
And you're not really training to be an architect?
No.
Why did you...
Call myself Christopher Wren? It just amused me. And they used to laugh at me at school and call me Little Christopher Robin, Robin Wren. Association of ideas was hell being at school.
What's your real name?
We needed to go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was also beastly, I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother,
Yes, your mother?
everything would be all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me, looked after me.
But you can't go on being looked after all your life. Things happen to you, and you've got to bear them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Was it something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it to do with Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young, almost a child at the time.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. It was horrible. Horrible. I try and never think of it. I try and put it out of my mind.
So you're running away from things too? Running away from things instead of facing them?
Perhaps, in a way, I am. Considering that I never saw you until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
I don't know. I suppose there's a sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out.
Well, frankly, what else can you do?
I might pinch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
Well, that would be frightfully stupid. It'd be almost as if admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't. Or at least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Who?
Sergeant Trotter. He puts things in your head, things that aren't true, that couldn't possibly be true.
What is all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
You see this?
Yes?
What is it? Yesterday's evening paper, a London paper. It was in Giles's overcoat pocket, but Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day.
But he wasn't. Went across country to get some wire netting and couldn't find any.
Well, that's all right. Probably he did go up to London after all.
But then why shouldn't he tell me? Why pretend he'd been racing all around the countryside?
Perhaps with the news of this murder.
But he didn't know about the murder. Or did he? Did he?
Good Lord, Molly, surely you don't think. The sergeant doesn't think.
I don't know what the sergeant thinks. He can make you think things about people. You ask yourself a question and you begin to doubt. You think that someone you love, you know well, might be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends and then suddenly you look at their faces and they aren't your friends any longer. They're different people just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anyone. Perhaps everyone's a stranger.
I seem to be interrupting something.
No, Giles, we were just talking. I must go to the kitchen and get on with the dinner, the food and potatoes.
I'll come and give you a hand.
No, you won't.
Giles.
Tete-a-tete aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and you keep away from my wife.
For really, look here.
Keep away from my wife, Ren. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think of me.
I've already said so, haven't I? There is just one person here who fits the bill.
I'm not the only one to fit the bill.
I don't see who else does.
How blind you are. Or do you just pretend to be blind?
I tell you, I'm worrying about my wife's safety.
So am I. I'm not going to leave you alone with her.
What the hell are
Please
you?
go, Christopher.
I'm not going.
Please go. I mean it.
Fine. Shan't be far away.
What's all this, Molly? You must be crazy. Perfectly prepared to shut yourself up in a room with a homicidal maniac.
He isn't.
You've only got to look at him to see he's barming.
He isn't. He's dangerous. I tell you, Giles, he's just unhappy. I would know if he was dangerous. And anyways, I can look after myself.
That's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Giles, don't.
Look here. What is there between you and that wretched boy?
What do you mean by between us? I'm sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you met him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here and pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, was it?
Giles, have you gone out of your mind? How dare you suggest these things?
Rather odd, isn't it? That he would come and stay in an out-of-the-way place like this.
No odder than Major Metcalf, Miss Casewell, or Mrs. Boyle should.
I read once in the paper that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Looks as though it were true. How long have you known Christopher Wren? How long has this been going on?
You're being absolutely ridiculous. I never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived here yesterday.
That's what you say. Perhaps you've been going up to London to meet him on the sly.
You know perfectly well I have not been up to London for weeks.
You haven't been up to London in weeks. Is that so?
What on earth do you mean? It's quite true.
Is it? Then what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday. I picked it up while I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. You see what's inside it? A London bus ticket.
Oh, that.
So it isn't only seeing you went to the village yesterday, you went to London as well.
All right, I went to...
Whilst I was safely racing around the countryside.
Whilst you were racing around the countryside...
Come on now, admit it. You went to London.
All right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Where did you get hold of that?
It was in your overcoat pocket.
Anyone could have put it there.
Did they? No, you were in London.
All right. I was in London, but I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? Are you sure that you didn't?
Eh? What do you mean?
Go away, don't...
Molly, what's
don't
the matter?
touch me!
Did you go up to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Don't be a fool, of course I didn't!
Then why did you go?
I shan't tell you that now. Perhaps I've forgotten why I went.
Molly, what's come over you all of a sudden? I feel as though I don't know you anymore.
Perhaps you never did know me. We've been married how long? A year? But you don't really know anything about me. What I'd done or thought or felt or suffered before you knew me.
Molly, you're crazy.
All right then. I'm crazy. Why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
What the hell?
Now, I do hope you young people are not both saying a little more than you mean. I'm so apt to in these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers' quarrels, that's good.
Quite so. I know just how you feel. I've been through all this myself when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
It's no business of yours, Parancini.
No business at all. I just came in to say the sergeant cannot find his skis, and I'm afraid he's very annoyed.
Christopher.
What's that?
He was wondering if you had perhaps moved them, Mr. Ralston.
No, of course not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, have you removed my skis from the cupboard where we put them?
Certainly not.
Somebody's taken them.
What made you happen to look for them?
Snow is still lying. I need help here. Reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station at Markenhampton to report on this situation.
Now you can't. Dear, somebody seemed to admit you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes, what?
Somebody may want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
Nothing.
So our young architect has hooked it, has he? Very, very interesting.
Is this true, Mrs. Ralston?
Oh, you haven't gone after all.
Did you take my skis, Mr. Wren?
No. Why would I?
Mrs. Ralston seemed to think...
Mr. Wren is very fond of skiing. I thought he may have taken them just to get a little exercise.
Exercise.
Listen, you people! This is a very serious matter. Somebody has removed my only chance of communication with the outside world. I want everybody gathered here at once.
I think Miss Casewell has gone upstairs. I'll get her. I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Major Metcalf? He's not there now.
I'll try and find him.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis?
Mr. Ralston!
Did either of you two remove a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Good Lord, no. Why should I?
And I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go to your room?
By the back stairs.
Then you passed the cupboard door.
If you say so, I have no idea where your skis are.
You were actually in that cupboard today.
Yes, I was.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I'd gone down to the cellar.
Were my skis in the cupboard when you passed through?
I haven't the least idea.
Didn't you see them there?
Can't remember.
You must remember if those skis were there then.
No good shouting at me, young fellow. I wasn't thinking about any damn skis. I was thinking about the cellars. Architecture of this place is very interesting. I opened the other door and I went on down, so I can't tell you whether your skis were there or not.
You do realize that you had an excellent opportunity of taking them.
Yes, I grant you that. If I wanted to, that is.
The question is, where are they now?
Ought to be able to find them if we all set to. Not a case of hump the thimble, whacking great things, skis. Supposing we all set to.
Just a minute, Major Metcalf. That could be, you know, what we are meant to do.
I don't get you.
See, I'm in the position now where I've got to put myself in the place of a crazy, cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what he wants us to do and what he himself is planning on doing next. I've got to keep just one step ahead of him, because if I don't, there's going to be another death.
You still don't believe that.
Yes, Miss Casewell, I do. 3 blind mice, 2 mice canceled out, and a 3rd mouse still to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. 1 of you's a killer. 1 of you's a killer. And another of you is the killer's prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are holding out on me. Well, don't, because you're in danger. Nobody who's killed twice is going to hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which of you it is that needs protection. Come on now. Anybody who has anything, however slight, to reproach themselves for in that bygone business had better come out with it. All right. You won't. I'll get the killer. I've no doubt about that. But it may be too late for one of you. And I'll tell you another thing. The killer's enjoying this. Yes, he's enjoying himself very much. All right, you can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried chicken liver served on toast that has been thickly smeared with a very thin rasher of bacon, just touched with a soup style of fresh mustard? Come with me to the kitchen. We will see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'm helping my wife prepare for cheese.
Your husband is afraid for you. Quite natural of the circumstances. He doesn't fancy being alone with me. It's my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonored ones. Alas, what an inconvenience the husband always is. Have you, Patella?
Sure, Giles doesn't think
He's
that.
very wise to take no chances.
Can I prove to you or to him or to our dogged sergeant that I'm not a homicidal maniac? So difficult to prove a negative. Suppose that instead I am. Oh, don't! But such a gay little tune, don't you think? She cut off their tails with the carving knife. Snick, snick, snick. Delicious. Just what a child would adore. Little things. Children. Some of them never grow up.
Stop frightening my wife at once!
It's silly of me, but you see, I found her. Her face was all purple and I can't forget it. I know. It's difficult to forget things, isn't it? You aren't really the forgetting kind. I must go. The food, dinner, prepare the spinach and the potatoes. Giles, please.
What did you say to the lady to upset her, sir?
Me, Sergeant? Just a little innocent fun. I've always been fond of a little joke.
There's nice fun, and there's fun that's not so nice.
Do wonder what you mean by that, Sergeant.
I've been doing a little wondering about you, sir.
Indeed?
I've been wondering about that car of yours, and how it happened to overturn in a snowdrift so conveniently.
Inconveniently, you mean, don't you, Sergeant?
That rather depends on the way you're looking at it. Just where were you bound for, by the way, when you had this accident?
I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood.
So very far from here.
And what was the name and address of this friend?
Not really, Sergeant Trotter. Does that matter now? I mean, it has nothing to do with this predicament, has it?
We always like the fullest information. What did you say this friend's name was?
I didn't say.
No, you didn't say. And it seems you're not going to say. Now that's very interesting.
There could be so many reasons. An amour, discretion, these jealous husbands.
You're rather old to be running around with the ladies at your time of life, aren't you?
My dear Sergeant, I'm not perhaps quite so old as I look.
That's just what I've been thinking, sir.
What?
That you may not be quite as old as you try to look. There's a lot of people going about trying to look younger than they are. If somebody goes about trying to look older, well, it does make one ask oneself, why?
Having asked questions of so many people, you ask questions of yourself as well. Isn't that overdoing things?
I might get an answer from myself. I don't get many from you.
Well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
Well, one or two. Where were you coming from last night?
That is simple. From London.
What address in London?
I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice, too, I'm sure. What is your permanent address?
Oh, I dislike permanency.
What is your business or profession?
I play the markets.
Stockbroker.
Oh no, you misunderstand me.
Enjoying this little game, aren't you? Sure of yourself, too, but I shouldn't be so sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, and don't you forget it. Murder isn't just fun and games.
Not even this murder. Dear me, Sergeant Trotter, you're very serious. I always have thought policemen have no sense of humor. Is the Inquisition over for the moment?
For the moment, yes.
Thank you so much. I shall return to the drawing room to see if someone's hitting your skis into the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, perhaps you'd come and sit down.
Well, what do you want?
Well, you may have heard some of the questions I was asking Mr. Paravicini.
I heard them.
I'd like a little information from you.
What do you want to know?
Full name, please.
Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine.
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address.
Villa Mariposa, Pine Door, Mallorca.
That's in Italy.
It's an island, a Spanish island.
And your address in England.
Carol Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
No other English address.
No,
Well, you've been staying since your arrival then.
the Ledbury Hotel in Knightsbridge.
What brought you to Monkswell Manor, Miss Casewell?
I wanted somewhere quiet and country.
How long did you Or do you propose on staying here?
Till I finished what I came here to do.
And what was that? What was that?
What?
What was it you came here to do?
I beg your pardon, I was thinking of something else.
You haven't answered my question.
I really don't see why I should. It's a matter that concerns me alone, a strictly private affair.
All the same, Miss Casewell.
No, I don't think we'll argue about it.
But would you mind telling me your age? Please.
Not in the least. It's on my passport. I'm 24.
24.
You were thinking I look older? That is quite true.
Is there anybody in this country who can vouch for you?
My bank will reassure you as to my financial position. I can also refer you to a solicitor, a very discreet man. I'm not in any position to offer you a social reference. I've lived most of my life abroad.
In Majorca.
In Majorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No, I left England when I was 13.
You know, Miss Casewell, I can't quite make you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
Seems to worry you.
It does worry me. You went abroad when you were 13?
Well, 13 thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It's my name now.
What was your name then? Come on, tell
What
me.
are you trying to prove?
I want to know what your name was when you left England.
It's a long time ago, I've forgotten.
There are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness. Despair.
I dare say.
What's your real name?
I told you! Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine! What the hell are you doing here?
Oh God. I wish to God I'd never come here.
I always thought that the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I have merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What did he do?
No, it's nothing. It's just all this murder. It's so horrible. It came over me suddenly. I'll go up to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it!
What can't you believe? 6 impossible things before breakfast like the Red Queen.
Yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me, you look as though you'd seen a ghost.
I've seen something I ought to have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been. But I think now we may be able to get somewhere.
The police have a clue?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Red, finally, the police have a clue. I want everybody assembled in here again. Do you know where they are?
Giles and Molly are in the kitchen. I've been helping Major Metcalf to look for your skis. We've looked at the most entertaining places, but all to no avail. I don't know where Paravicini is.
I'll get him, you get the others. Mr. Paravicini. Paravicini. Paravicini!
Yes, Sergeant. What can I do for you? Little Bo policeman has lost his skis and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home, dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this?
Sit down, Major. Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are more important things than meals, Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Boyle, for instance, won't want another meal.
That's a very tactless way of putting things, Sergeant.
I'm sorry, but I want cooperation and I intend to get it. Mr. Ralston, could you go upstairs and get Miss Casewell? She just went up. Tell her it'll only be for a few minutes.
Have your skis been found, Sergeant?
No, Mrs. Ralston, but I may say that I have a very shrewd suspicion over who took them and of why. I won't say anything else at the present moment.
Please don't. I always think all the information should be saved to the very end. That exciting last chapter, you know?
This isn't a game, sir.
Isn't it? No, there I think you are wrong. I think it is a game. To somebody.
You think the murderer is enjoying himself. Maybe. Maybe.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell. Mrs. Ralston. Will you all pay attention, please? You may remember that after the murder of Mrs. Boyle, I took statements from you all. These statements related to your positions at the time the murder was committed. These statements are as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen preparing vegetables. Mr. Paravicini playing the piano in the drawing room. Mr. Ralston upstairs. Mr. Wren, ditto. Miss Casewell in the library. And Major Metcalf in the cellars.
Correct.
These were the statements you made. I had no means of checking on these statements. They may be true, they may not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of these statements are true, and 1 is false. Which one? 5 of you were telling me the truth, 1 of you was lying. I have a plan that will help me to discover the liar, and when I discover which one of you lied to me, then I know who our killer is.
Not necessarily. Someone may have lied for some other reason.
I rather doubt that.
But you've just said you've no means of checking these statements.
No. But supposing we were to go through these actions a second time.
Ah, that old chestnut. A reconstruction of the crime.
That's a foreign idea.
No, not a reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Paravicini. A reconstruction of actions of apparently innocent persons.
What do you expect to learn from all that?
It will be forgiven if I don't make that clear at this moment.
You want a repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It's a trap. I know it is.
I only want everybody to do exactly what they did before.
But I don't see. I just simply can't see what you can hope to possibly find out by just making people do the things that they did before. I think it's just nonsense.
Do you, Mr. Wren?
Well, you can count me out. I'm much too busy in the kitchen.
I can't count anybody out. One might almost think you're all guilty by the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course, whatever you say goes, Sergeant. We will all cooperate. Eh, Molly?
Very well.
Wren?
Fine.
Miss Casewell?
Yes?
Paravicini?
Oh yes, I consent.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Are we all to do exactly what we did before?
The same actions will be performed. Yes.
Then I will return to the piano in the drawing room, and once again, with one finger, will pick out the signature tune of a murderer. Tum, 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 tum.
Not quite so fast, Mr. Paravicini. Do you play the piano, Mrs. Ralston?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of 3 Blind Mice?
Don't we all?
Then you could pick it out on the piano with one finger, just as Mr. Paravicini did. Good. Please go into the drawing room, sit at the piano, and be ready to play when I give you the signal.
But, Sergeant, I understood that we were each to repeat our former roles.
The same actions will be performed, but not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I don't see the point.
There is a point. It's a means of checking up on the original statements, and maybe one statement in particular. Now, will you all pay attention, please, and I will assign each of you your new stations. Mr. Wren, would you kindly go to the kitchen? Just keep an eye on Mrs. Ralston's food for her. You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Paravicini, would you mind going up to Mr. Wren's room? By the back stairs is the quickest way. Major Metcalf, could you go up to Mr. and Mrs. Ralston's room and try the extension telephone there? Miss Casewell, would you mind going down to the cellars? Mr. Wren can show you the way. Now, it's unfortunate, but I need somebody to reproduce my own actions. I'm sorry to ask it of you, Mr. Ralston, but would you mind leaving by that window and tracing the telephone wire around near the front door? It's rather a chilly job, but you're probably the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do?
I am enacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
You will all stay in your places and remain there until you hear me call you.
Parlor games.
objection to my wearing a coat.
I should advise it, sir. Take my torch, sir. It's behind the curtain. Mrs. Ralston, count 20 and then begin to play. Mrs. Ralston! Mrs. Ralston!
Yes? What is it? You're looking rather pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
I've got exactly what I wanted.
So you know who the murderer is?
Yes, I know.
Well, which one of them?
You ought to know, Mrs. Ralston.
Me.
Yes, you've been extraordinarily foolish, by holding out on me with information. As a result, you've been in serious danger more than once.
I don't know what you mean.
Come now, Mrs. Ralston. We policemen aren't quite so dumb as you think. All along, I've realized that you had first-hand knowledge of the Longridge Farm affair. You knew Mrs. Boyle was the magistrate concerned. In fact, you knew all about it. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I don't understand. I just wanted to forget. Forget.
Your maiden name was Warren, correct?
Yes.
Miss Warren, you taught school. In the school where those children went.
Yes.
It's true, isn't it, that Jimmy, the child who died, managed to get a letter posted to you? The letter begged for help. Help from his kind young teacher. You never answered that letter.
Well, I couldn't. I never got
We
it.
just didn't bother.
Well, that's not true. I was ill. I went down with pneumonia that very day. It was weeks until I found it with a lot of other letters. By then, that poor child was dead. Dead, waiting, hoping, gradually losing hope. It's haunted me ever since. If only I hadn't been ill. If only I'd known. It's monstrous that such things should happen.
Oh yes, it's monstrous.
I thought the police didn't carry revolvers.
The police don't. I'm not a policeman, Mrs. Ralston. See, you thought I was a policeman because I rang up from a call box and said I was speaking from police headquarters and that Sergeant Trotter was on his way. I cut the telephone wires around near the front door. You know who I am, Mrs. Ralston? I'm Georgie. I'm Jimmy's brother, Georgie.
Oh,
You better not scream, Mrs. Ralston, because if you do, I shall fire this revolver. I'd like to talk to you a minute. I said I'd like to talk to you. Jimmy died. That nasty, cruel woman killed him. They put her in prison. Prison wasn't bad enough for her. I said I'd kill her one day, and I did too. In fog. It's great fun. I hope Jimmy knows I'll kill them all when I've grown up. That's what I used to say to myself, because grown-ups can do anything they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
better not. You'll never get safely away.
Someone's taken my skates! I can't find them! But it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. See, I don't really care if I get away or not. I'm tired. It's all been such fun watching you all and pretending to be a policeman.
That revolver is going to make a lot of noise.
It will, rather. Much better to do it the usual way. And take you by the neck. The last little mouse in the trap.
Georgie! Don't you remember the farm, Georgie? The animals? That fat old pig? The day the bull chases across the field? And the dogs?
Dogs.
Yes, Spot in the plane.
Kathy?
Yes, Kathy. You remember me now, don't you?
Kathy. Kathy, it is you. What are you doing here?
I came to England to find you. I didn't recognize you until you curled your hair the way you always used to do. As you always did. Georgie, come with me. You're coming with me.
Where are we going?
It's all right. I'm going to take you somewhere where they'll look after you and see that they won't do you any more harm.
Ralston! Ralston!
Molly, darling, are you alright?
Child,
Whoever would have dreamt it was Trotter?
it's mad, quite mad.
Yes, but you...
I was caught up in it all. I taught school where those children went, and it wasn't my fault, but I thought I could have saved that child.
You should have told me.
I just wanted to forget.
Everything is under control. He'll be unconscious and the sedative. His sister's looking after him. Poor fellow is as mad as a hatter, of course. I had my suspicions of him all along.
You did. Did you believe he was a policeman?
No, Mr. Ralston, you see, I'm a policeman.
You?
Yes. When we received that notebook with Monkswell Manor written in it, we knew he was about to have somebody put on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. Couldn't understand it when Trotter showed up, though.
And Casewell is his sister?
Yes, it seems she recognized him just before this last business. Didn't know what to do about it, but fortunately came to me about it just in time. Well, it's starting to thaw. Help should be here soon. Oh, and by the way, I'll move those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
And I thought it was Paravicini.
I gather they'll examine that carcass rather carefully. I expect they'll find 1,000 or so Swiss watches in that spare wheel of his. Yes, that's his line of business. Nasty bit of goods. Molly, I believe you thought that I was...
Giles, what were you doing in London yesterday?
Molly, I was buying you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
That's why I went to London for, and I didn't want you to know.
No.
They're cigars. I do hope they're all right.
They're splendid.
You will smoke them?
I'll smoke them.
My
Oh, I forgot all about your present. It's a hat.
A hat, but I practically never wear one.
Well, just for Bess.
Oh, how lovely.
Put it on.
darling. Later, when my hair's done properly.
It is all right, isn't it? The lady at the shop said it was the last thing of hats.
Mr. Ralston, there's a terrible smell of burning coming from the kitchen.
Oh, my pie.
Thank you all for coming this morning. You have been a wonderful audience. Now that you've seen the Mousetrap, we ask that you are our partners in crime. We would ask you guys to please preserve the 66-year tradition of this play by not spoiling the secret of whodunit and keeping it locked in your hearts. Thank you, and now let's meet the cast, starting with our radio announcer.